So, first question, at what point in your life did the urge to write first come upon you?
I don't really know, but it was probably not that long after I learned to write, because I remember when I was wee, the things that I liked doing most would be reading, writing, drawing. So I used to, read lots of books and write my own wee stories and poems and draw pictures of them. So I don't really remember not doing it. I think what happens, probably like a lot of people, as you grow older, it becomes something that's not. You're not like a child who just does things because they know they like doing them, and it becomes something that you don't do, or you do and you don't show them to anybody. That was my experience anyway. I never showed things to people, and I would not finish anything, and I would stick it in a drawer somewhere, and I never told anybody that I did it. And it was not until much later that somehow it was not so much I got the urge to write, but I got the urge more to try and complete things, to try and finish them off, to try and polish them, and eventually, after a long sort of process, to start to send off stories to be published and send them to competitions or anthologies or something.
What kind of stage in your life did that start, in terms of where you started to kind of take it seriously?
Probably about just over 10 years ago. Maybe about 12 years ago, I went on an Arvon writing course up in the north of Scotland, and that was a big step for me, because it was the first time that I was almost like coming out, as a writer. I'm actually spending a week of my life going and doing this thing, and it's like, these are very good courses, because they always have good tutors, and you spend a week with folk and there's nothing to do except write, and you're expected to write, and you walk about and people are sitting in corners with notebooks, or using computers and talking about what they're writing and reading out what they're writing, and it's amazing. So that was a big, huge shift for me. I think that probably moved it on considerably.
And had you been kind of writing in the dark, and scribbling in corners before then?
Yeah. That was
had you always really done that kind of?
On and off. I mean, as I say, I did it when I was wee, and like most teenagers, I kind of would keep a diary and would write some poetry and things like that. And then later on, I still did write.
And now you're a professional writer. What motivates you and what sustains you as a writer? What do you find the most satisfying thing about being a professional writer?
I suppose, I don't really know, but I just do it, and it's a bit like a license to play almost. I think that's probably the best bit of it, because for me the best times is actually not even really when you see your book on the shelf or anything like that, although that obviously is great. But it's actually when you're doing it, it's the process, it's just being in the middle of doing it, and I enjoy it. I suppose that's the nearest I can say. It's like playing. It's that way that it's like being wee again and being completely lost in a world, and that's what I enjoy. I suppose I think that's the thing, is that that bit of it has got nothing to do with whether anybody wants to publish you or not. I would always do that, even if nobody ever wanted to publish me, even if your book collapses and nobody wants you again. I'd keep on doing. Maybe I would not polish things up to as much, to the extent that you do, and go through all the detail of it, but I would still write and I would still have fun with it.
And as a child, were you very creative in terms of, did you just have that compulsion to make things and create things, and you were painting pictures?
I think all children are. I think they all are. I think what happens is, at some point, and it's probably at different points for different people, at some points people seem to kind of get to a point where it's not okay to keep doing something unless you're brilliant at it, or unless it's sanctioned in some way for you. It's okay to keep doing it. Like, say for example, you enjoy singing or something like that. All children love singing, but at a certain point people get this thing of, wait a minute, well, I love singing, but I'm not really a good singer. She's a good singer and he's a good singer, and they're going on to be in the choir, but maybe, whereas actually, if in a sense at some point we get stopped being creative and expressing ourselves in ways, because that's how our culture works. And nowadays there's a much greater emphasis, I suppose, in writing and so on, but there's still barriers. People still put barriers in their own way.
I think that's a very, very interesting point. Do you think that Jimmy in Buddha Da is a bit like that in terms of he's not a great Buddhist, but was that something that you had in your mind when creating that character in terms of why shouldn't a working class guy from Glasgow explore Buddhism in his own way?
Well, I think in the case of Jimmy and in the case of my writing generally, I'm very character led, so therefore my characters, I know it sounds really weird, but my characters tend to take me where they want to go. I don't sit down and go, I'm going to write a book about so and so. I mean, and really, when I started off with Jimmy, I started off with the character of Anne Marie, and Jimmy was the Da, and I was quite interested in that kind of fairly typical Glasgow character who's really outgoing, talks to everybody, is very warm and friendly, but appears to have, no inner life in a sense, because they've got no embarrassment. You feel as if they would tell you anything. And of course that's not true, because everybody's got a serious side. In Glasgow it's generally not something that is a very easy thing for people to talk about, even now, even when we're all much more infected with all the kind of more American ways of doing things and showing our feelings and emoting a lot and all that kind of stuff. It's still in Glasgow, it's much more difficult for people to be serious about anything, because as soon as you try and be serious about something, somebody knocks you down and makes a joke of it. So, and Jimmy's a joker, and I think the thing is that the Buddhist stuff just popped in somehow, and then I wanted to explore it, and I thought, well, this is what he wants to do, because he does. I mean, he's getting a bit older. He does have a serious side. We all do, and exactly why should Jimmy not explore that side of him, explore that part of him? And he's very, very attracted towards it. And I think the thing about Buddhism is that although people see it as maybe quite an intellectual kind of thing, actually the heart is very much engaged in it, and Jimmy is very much a heart person. So therefore that part of it is to some extent not that difficult for him.
You obviously, as anybody who knows your writing knows that you write Glasgow and write the vernacular. Both to a great extent in hieroglyphics, you write short stories, and then first novel with a Da. Have you always written in the vernacular, is being Emily in a similar kind of voice?
When I started out, I suppose I wrote the kind of stories that I thought I should write. It's that kind of third person, standard English, a bit of dialogue, maybe more Glasgow, because that's what, that was people speaking. And I never felt happy with them, and it was not until I actually started to write in a Scots voice that there was anything that I was happy with, or in fact that anybody wanted to publish. And the way that I did it originally was purely, again, character driven, because I realised that the character I wanted to write about, that was not how she spoke. She did not speak in standard English, so therefore I started to write in Scots, and immediately it just made much more sense. It was much more alive, it was much more true, it was much more real, and I was much more excited by it.